You asked, and so I will deliver. Today's episode is on Conga and Congalala, which are really just two words that refer to the same genus and species, Prognathodontotherium vulgaris, which means vulgar four-jaw tooth. And I've named that, and it's not four as in there are four of them, which there are four of them. I thought that was a fun double entendre, but specifically, Congalala and Conga have four teeth in the front of their mandible. Congalala is one of the fanged beasts of Monster Hunter, which is kind of an arbitrary classification that describes a lot of stuff that is vaguely mammalian. In particular, Congalala is probably some kind of primatomorph. It has opposable thumbs, but it's really bizarre in terms of its anatomy, so I wouldn't group it with very many of the living primates. As you can see here, it has this really, really bizarre long snout. Both of them do, the Conga and the Congalala. Even the little Congas have this like super enlarged snout, so that's probably, rather than being a display feature for interspecific competition, it's involved in their feeding. Besides having these big four tusks, which seem to be used for digging along with the big claws, Congalala also has this like scalloped upper lip, which I think would probably be used for cropping chunks of fungus. If you're watching my page for the first time, I study birds and dinosaurs, I work in a museum, and I also really love Monster Hunter. It's one of my favorite things ever. And so I'm going over the science and potential evolutionary causes of many of the different organisms found in Monster Hunter Wilds and probably some of the other games as well. Congalala is the term, generally speaking, that applies to like the leader of these groups of congas, and the thing which denotes its status as leader is it has this very highly groomed and manicured like tuft of hair on top of its head. In the congas, that hair hangs down all over their head, which it does do when you break it in Congalala. So if you damage the head enough, it sort of comes undone and hangs down. But grooming within primates is like a very important thing socially, so it makes sense that this would be a signal of dominance within this species. Now to address the elephant in the room, Congalala's fart gas. It can eat a bunch of different things, which I've coded out here, all the different mushrooms, and then what they do to the gas. And in terms of defense, farting is, probably something that would drive off a predator if it was done that vigorously. But additionally, it serves a communication purpose. Animals find each other a lot by smell, especially mammals. And so having a persistent odor around you would probably help your pack members identify you, especially because Congalala doesn't seem to negatively affect the congas when it releases gas on them. It's possible that this does serve a communication purpose. Another really interesting thing that I had happen was that I ran into a Congalala that had this great big scar up and down its arm. Now, it was a tempered Congalala, which is canonically in universe when a monster goes through extraordinary hardship, whether it's fighting other monsters, if it's being preyed upon or something. And what this indicates, this is what we would call a paleopathology if it was found on an extinct organism, or just a pathology if it was found on a living one, that this animal has gone through some extreme hardship, whether that's in a predator-prey interaction that it was able to survive, or maybe more likely, intraspecific competition. So these Congalalas might slash at each other with their big claws if they're fighting for dominance. One thing that's really interesting to me with Congalala is that it has apparently very powerful jaws. There's a lot of like really strong musculature back there, and the jaws are fairly big and large. So I imagine that it's not exclusively eating mushrooms. It might be eating nuts, or harder fruit, or maybe even it's venturing into meat or fish to supplement its diet. Loads of different kinds of animals are super opportunistic, and just because Congalala is relatively specialized in eating fungi and soft things, does not necessarily mean that it's not using these jaws to bite down on stuff that takes a little bit more force to open. So that's a word of warning to all the hunters out there that are thinking it's a good idea to get too close to this beast. So yeah, that's Congalala. Let me know which creature I should do next. I've been getting a lot of different screenshots of very interesting organisms, including some of the endemic life in the fish. So if you want me to do even those, not just the large monsters, I'll do whatever people think are interesting and whatever I think is interesting. So good news for the azure rough lizard, because I think that thing is a beauty, even though it is, very teeny tiny and not a lot of people notice it, I feel. One more thing before I go, I did want to notice, but I forgot if I mentioned it, that these claws are probably used for pulling down vegetation from higher elevations to eat. They're similar to what you would see in therizinosaurs like Nothronychus or Therizinosaurus, and they're used for manipulating vegetation and potentially also intraspecific combat. So yeah, that's this episode of me talking about Monster Hunter characters or monsters. Let me know what you want to see next. I'm enjoying this series so far, and I thank everybody for watching it. It's been getting some great traction, and I super appreciate that. Thank you all.